Hi, I'm Dennis Hentrick. We're filming in my backyard in Mount Shasta, California. This device is a worm composting box that my stepson Tyson and I made a few years ago. It holds worms, and today we've got quite a variety of tree frogs that have gathered because they like to dine on the flies and other insects that come around, so they're a nice addition to what we're doing here. Look at that guy. So the worm composter has soil in it. We started with some chicken manure and steer manure, and I use some of the native soil, which is volcanic primarily and doesn't have a lot of nitrogen. And over the season we've been adding in our garden waste. So I ground up some fruit peelings and eggshells and material like that. We're going to dump that in just a moment. I feed the worm box in segments, and I use a pitchfork to move the soil so as not to disturb the worms, but allow me to get down to where they're feeding. I do it in segments because I want to be able to leave the worms time to do their work. I fed most recently on this end, so most of the worms are down there because that's where the food is at this moment. So we're going to load this side today, and the worm box has a screen mesh in the bottom of it, and it sits up on these blocks and has pans underneath it. Now the pans allow the drainage for the water that I use to water the box to go through. And that does two things. It cleans the worm castings out of the box because worms can't live in their own castings. And it allows the worm water to come through into the bottom, and I siphon that off into 5-gallon jugs and then water my garden with it. So we put the food for the worms, which is basically all the stuff that we don't eat. Bits and pieces of plants I pull out of the garden, and other debris from the kitchen goes right in there, and we cover it up, and the worms will be attracted to that waste, which they'll use as food, and it produces extremely good garden soil. The cycle is about 3 weeks, so I'll feed pretty heavily in one spot for a week, and then I won't dig that up for another 2 to 3 weeks, and that will give them time to turn it into soil. In the meantime, I water it every day, and the drainage that comes out is worm water that has micronutrients and the dissolved worm castings, and it's a way to keep putting that good nitrogen and other elements back into the soil of the garden. We'll do another video of the garden in a little bit. You can have a chance to see what kind of yield you get for it. So we water it in pretty heavily, and the drainage that will come out of the bottom takes a while to percolate through, but when it does, you can smell from the water that comes through that it's laden with nutrients. It's not an objectionable smell, it's like compost. So we just water this in really carefully and thoroughly, and we get immediate results for nutrients for the garden, plus what we eat doesn't, the waste from the garden doesn't end up in the landfill. It goes right back into the garden again. So we'll move around to the back, and you can see the tray that collects the water that drains through. Right back here is the tray. I've got a clamp just holding a siphon hose in place, and that collects all the drainage. So In the next video, I'll show you how I siphon the water out of this, and then we'll take it down and put it on the garden. Okay, and you can do worms at home. Not that complicated. Free for